So today we're doing a deep dive into the history and weaponization of Black literacy. We're trying to move beyond the usual narrative of, physical victimization.
Right, to explore what the source material calls intellectual warfare.
Exactly. And this idea of the inarticulate slave, it wasn't just some random belief, was it?
No, not at all. It was a very deliberate cultural project. You see it pushed by media, especially early Hollywood, to sort of rationalize control. It was designed to hide the real intellectual battle that was happening.
Okay, so let's dismantle that myth. We can actually start with the actors themselves who, played these inarticulate characters but were the complete opposite in real life. If we look at what the sources call the cinematic construction of the slave figure, you get characters like Stepin Fetchit.
Played by Lincoln Perry.
Right. And he was portrayed as lazy, couldn't really speak properly, a caricature that was meant to be reassuring to white audiences.
It was. It justified a paternalistic view. But the reality of the actor, Lincoln Perry, that's where you see this profound double consciousness.
He was actually highly literate.
Incredibly so. He was writing columns for the Chicago Defender, one of the most important Black newspapers in the country.
So the on-screen persona was just a mask?
A calculated one. For survival and, for profit. It shows how complex this was.
And that masking, it points to the broader linguistic reality. Enslaved people were using code switching and coded language all the time.
Yes. James C. Scott calls this the hidden transcript. It wasn't just random chatter. It was a whole secret discourse, a constant critique of power that was happening just out of earshot of the enslavers. It was incredibly sophisticated. Think about the spirituals. Wade in the Water is a perfect example. It sounds like a hymn, but it was also a literal tactical instruction. An instruction for escaping slaves. It told them to get in the river to throw the bloodhounds off their scent. That's a sophisticated use of metaphor for survival.
And the enslavers must have known this was happening on some level.
Oh, they absolutely did. You can see it in the laws they passed. The United States is apparently the only country known to have had anti-literacy laws aimed specifically at one racial group.
Which, if you think about it, is a huge admission.
It's a total admission. Why would you ban something you claim is impossible? The South Carolina law from 1740, for instance, fines someone 100 pounds for teaching a slave to write.
100 pounds? That's an enormous sum. They knew how powerful the written word was.
And then you have people like Frederick Douglass.
His speeches were so masterful, so logical, that audiences literally didn't believe he could have ever been a slave.
He had to write his autobiography just to prove his own life story. His command of language was a weapon.
Which brings us to this idea of the pen as a sword.
And there's no better example than David Walker's Appeal in 1829. That pamphlet was considered so dangerous that Southern states put a $3,000 bounty on his head.
For a book.
Think about that. A collection of ideas was more terrifying to the system than an armed person, because it could kill the idea of slavery itself.
So let's bring this into the present. How does this legacy of literacy as warfare play out today? The sources mention the foundational Black American, or FBA, ethos.
They do, and it's a fascinating extension of this history. The FBA perspective focuses intensely on the medium of information, specifically the physical book.
So a physical book over an ebook or an audiobook. Why?
They see it as a hard asset, an archive of resistance that can't be easily censored, deleted, or updated silently like a digital file can.
That makes sense. You can't just push an update to a printed book.
Exactly. And there's a cognitive argument, too. They argue that deep reading of a physical text is a necessary workout for your critical thinking.
A workout you'd need to really tackle complex economic theories, like in Dr. Claude Anderson's Powernomics.
Precisely. From this viewpoint, passive listening to an audiobook can be seen as a regression, a return to the oral tradition that was forced upon enslaved people when literacy was denied to them.
So to wrap this up for you, the core idea we're seeing is that the pen is still the ultimate weapon.
A sword can enforce the status quo.
But a literate mind, one that's really engaged with the text, that has the power to rewrite the whole thing.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to consider. If literacy was so vital that people risked everything to outlaw it, what societal structures today are making deep knowledge acquisition just inconvenient? Now, what's the real intellectual cost of all that convenience?